Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the one and only Mr. Jonathan Twomley. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing very well. One of the things that I know, and if you're a frequent follower of your playlist, know you have a lot of history and experience with Japan, right? Not only, I believe that's where your wife is from,
Mhm.
but you have investors there, so you have a long history with Japan, and we
Yeah,
talked about it on occasion.
yeah, I live
And
there too. I mean,
oh,
I
you
also,
live there?
oh yeah, I
Oh,
lived
wow.
there for like 4 years. So
Okay. So
yeah.
yeah, of all my experts, you have the most in-depth knowledge of Japan. So I just wanted to ask you about the Bank of Japan rug pulling the entire market, the world market on, I think it was Tuesday evening. They came
Yeah,
out and did something unexpected.
yeah, they raised rates. Like,
Like
like,
everybody else.
oh my God. I mean, it was just, they've been they've kept their rates low in spite of every other bank, every other central bank in the world raising rates. And the US has raised rates aggressively, and Japan just kept its rate in the same place, resulting in like a 20% decline of the value of the yen against the dollar. I had really wondered if this was partially intentional because they also just opened the floodgates to tourism. They had
Mm,
really been they'd really been delayed in that, right? Because they had overly restrictive
yeah.
coronavirus policies. And I mean, not like China, but just sort of not really
Yeah, they weren't
efficient.
open. Yeah, they
Yeah, they
weren't
weren't
open.
open. They were kind of, shooting themselves in the foot. And then suddenly they decided to like lift the restrictions, and they've just had this boom of tourism,
Yeah,
which is encouraged also by the fact that the yen, it's like a bargain to go to Japan now, right? So
right.
so I was wondering if they had done that intentionally, to try to spur the economy by, and also obviously Japanese products are cheaper and et
Mhm.
cetera. Um, but it looks like they started getting a little bit of inflation, which you would
Yeah,
ex which but
you
you would
expect.
expect, right?
Yeah,
Because if
that's
you
kind of like what's supposed to happen. Yeah,
right when you when you let your currency decline, you get inflation, right? Because everything becomes more expensive.
right.
They but they had, in spite of some rising inflation and whatnot, they had continued to keep their interest rate low until, out of nowhere, this week I woke up, in the morning, and there was like all this kerfuffle about how
Yeah.
Japan had raised rates, by a quarter point, and they announced they were going to like ease off their quantitative easing, and the markets just went kind of bananas, and the yen rose by,
Meaningfully.
yeah, like 7 yen to the dollar or something,
Yeah.
and so yeah, just out of nowhere. So even Japan is not getting in the act. Now, when they said inflation in Japan, they were still talking. It was like over their 2 point.
Yeah. I think I read
Their,
somewhere it was like 3.4 or something.
yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And the irony is that they've been trying to get inflation in Japan
Yeah.
for decades, right? So now the minute that inflation like rears its head a little bit, they freak out and they raise rates, and it's a little. I don't think anybody expected it because, uh, you know,
I think that's
what's
the
going on.
key, right? One of the things you have to give Powell credit for, and he's doing it on purpose, is he's telegraphing what's coming.
Yeah,
I believe the Bank of Japan, again, I have no experience there. Been there 3 or 4 times, but no experience. Uh, Came out of left field. The market apparently did not expect it, and
yeah.
hence the gyrations that day.
Yeah, and there's just all sorts of speculation about what's going on. I mean, the chairman of the Bank of Japan, his term is up in April, and he's
Oh,
stepping
okay.
down. And there's people trying to speculate as to whether it's somehow related to that he wanted to do this before he left, or like, you
Probably,
know.
yeah.
So it's just, everybody's scratching their heads now. But I don't think this is a bad thing. Um, but clearly they're getting worried about the the yen, sinking too low against the dollar, and what that
And
means
just
to
to give
inflation.
people color, depending on how you would look at it, one way you can look at it is the Bank of Japan doubled rates, went up 100%. The other way is they went from a quarter to 50 basis points. That's point 0.5, folks, point 0.5.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I
also, when
mean,
I look at Japan, they have a I don't know what their debt to GDP is. I think it's like 300% or something. It's up there.
They have an enormous debt. It's even higher than the US debt in
Yeah, on a
GDP
percentage. Yeah,
percentage. However, the thing that, listen, and it's above my pay grade to decide whether this is true or not. But
sure.
one of the things that I have seen argued about why it is not as much of a problem as it is for us is because almost all of that debt is held by Japanese citizens,
Yeah, it's very much.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's, I mean, literally, that's like what pensions and savings and stuff consist of. So there's like just this enormous holding of Japanese government debt in the hands of private citizens in Japan. It's not like the US where we financed our trade deficit by selling bonds to the rest of the world, right? So
right.
um, the Japan, I think, still has a positive balance of trade with
I think
pretty
so.
much everyone, except maybe they also have a negative balance with China. But
Mm.
their bonds are not. Their bonds are basically held by Japanese pension funds, by private citizens, by Japanese companies, by like other Japanese banks, other branches of government. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but
Yeah,
so that's why the argument has been, well, yeah, but we owe it to ourselves,
yeah,
so it's not
yeah.
a big deal. Like whereas in the US, like, well, we owe it to everybody else,
Right.
and
I wanted to check the 10-year. I haven't checked this morning. I mean, it jumped that day. Oh, it's down. So it's settling back to where it was. But yeah, I mean, their surprise move, it rippled across the world for 24
yeah,
hours. And then the last thing that I kind of read here is it feels like and again, this is just tea leaf stuff, so it could be absolutely wrong and probably is that anytime like the Bank of Japan or the Fed moves, it's not one and done.
yeah,
Historically speaking, it's not one and done. So this could be a we could see this again out of Japan, I think.
yeah. I mean, I would not be surprised at all because it's hard to imagine that the simple raise of the rates by a quarter point is going to really make a difference, right? Especially
Right.
when I think a lot of what's driving their inflation is the fact that everything just became 20% more expensive because the value of the yen
Yep.
just tanked against every other currency, right? So
Yeah.
um
Very cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask you about that again. I have a series of experts, and everybody has their little domain of expertise. You have the most experience in Japan, so thank you for that. But you also run an amazing Facebook group. Tell us about that so people can follow you, join, all that good stuff.
Yes, if you don't know this already by now, I run a Facebook group and a mentoring community called the Apartment Investors Club. Sorry, this is almost up. Yes, the Apartment Investors Club. And if you want to join my mailing list, you will get this download for free. So this is how long is this thing? I mean, it is not that length is the characteristic by which you should judge things.
Yeah,
It's big
not
type.
not equating to value, but yes,
Yes, exactly.
it's solid.
It's a 57-page checklist, but big type, lots of room for you to like make notes and stuff.
Yeah,
Basically takes you through the entire process of how you find deals, how you syndicate deals, how you raise money. I mean,
yeah,
literally, you could just kind of like run a business based on this checklist. Or if you've ever been really curious about exactly, like you're thinking like,
yeah,
hey, I've always wanted to syndicate a deal. What do I need to do? Well, this is what you need to do. It's all in here in a checklist. So you can get this by going to apartmentinvestorsclub.com and you'll see the download right there. And another thing that is absolutely free, you can join my Facebook group, also called apartmentinvestorsclub.com. And we have good discussions in there. I'm always happy to answer your questions about syndications, about doing multifamily deals, whatnot. And we've got 1,200 people or so in there who are all
nice.
very active. And there is a free video series in there. If you join the group, there's a free video series about how you do sort of what a syndication looks like, an overview, how you find deals from brokers, how you raise money, and then really the sort of the proper mindset that you need to adopt as a syndicator. So go in there, get it. It's all free, and then come and join the conversation and ask me questions. Always happy to answer your questions in the group.
Yeah, Jonathan is amazing. He's active in my group as well, so I appreciate that. I see you in there every once in a while. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.